Why dark chosen ones secretly reject the power within. The most misunderstood beings walking this earth right now are the dark chosen ones. Not dark in the sense of evil, but dark like the fertile soil buried beneath the surface, dark like the womb of the cosmos, and dark like the silence that holds all sound before it's born. You know who you are. You've carried a weight your whole life that no one else could see. You've walked through pain that didn't make sense, loss that seemed too early, betrayals that came without warning. And beneath all that, a strange, almost haunting feeling has followed you for as long as you can remember, that you were meant for something more, something unexplainable, something powerful. But every time you get close to it, you pull back. You shrink, you hide, you sabotage. And you tell yourself it's not fear. You call it humility, or not being ready, or waiting for a sign. But if you're being honest, you've been rejecting your own power for years. Silently, secretly, consistently. And why? Why would someone who's born with such intense spiritual potential deny it? The answer isn't simple, but it is real, because power scares us more than failure. Because on some level, stepping into your true power means the death of everything that feels familiar and safe. And dark chosen ones know this more intimately than anyone. We don't fear the light because we don't know it, we fear it because deep down we are it. And that knowing is terrifying. Because if we are the light, then everything we've been blaming, everything we've projected onto others, every reason we've given for why we're not stepping forward, all of it collapses. We lose the excuse of smallness. We lose the illusion of waiting. We lose the comfort of invisibility.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
So we reject it, not out of weakness, but out of spiritual caution. Because we understand instinctively that real power isn't about being in control, it's about being responsible for what you awaken in others. It's about becoming a mirror so clear that people can't look at you without seeing their own reflection. And that kind of power isn't glamorous. It's devastating. It strips you. It isolates you. It demands everything. And most of us, if we're honest, aren't sure we're ready to carry that weight. But here's where it gets deeper. The rejection doesn't always look like fear. Sometimes it looks like perfectionism. You convince yourself you can't step into your path until you've healed every wound, mastered every lesson, earned every credential. But that's not healing, that's delay dressed up as preparation. Sometimes rejection looks like service. You give and give and give to others, but never to yourself. You pour your energy into saving everyone else, secretly hoping they'll validate your worth so you won't have to claim it yourself. But that's not love, that's avoidance. And sometimes rejection looks like rebellion. You reject spiritual practices altogether. You distance yourself from anything labeled light or divine because it reminds you of how much you've run from your own. But that's not freedom, that's fear masquerading as autonomy. Ask yourself this: what would you have to let go of if you fully accepted your power? What identity would have to die? What relationships would shift? What parts of you would be exposed? The answers to those questions are the exact reasons you've kept yourself small. Not because you're weak, but because you're aware. You're aware that power doesn't just elevate, it disrupts. It makes you a target. It ends comfort. It demands alignment. And that's the part no one tells you about spiritual awakening. It's not a blissful ascent. It's a burning, and dark chosen ones are here to burn. But here's the truth, your power will never leave you. It will sit patiently in the background, waiting. It will show up in dreams, in synchronicities, in the way people are drawn to you, even when you push them away. It will whisper through the books you're drawn to, the music you can't stop listening to, the silence that feels more like home than any place on earth. It will wait for you to stop running. And when you finally turn to face it, it will not punish you for the delay. It will embrace you. Because your power is not something you earn, it's something you remember. Every time you get close to claiming it, life throws another test, or another heartbreak, another betrayal. And you think, see, I'm not ready. But what if those aren't signs you're failing? What if those are signs you're being initiated? Because the deeper your power, the more intense your purification must be. You're not being punished, you're being refined. And yes, it hurts. Of course it does. You're being carved into a vessel that can hold cosmic fire. That's not a gentle process. That's a sacred dismantling. So, if you felt stuck, lost, disconnected from your purpose, it's not because you're broken. It's because you're on the edge. You're standing at the threshold between who you were and who you're becoming. And every part of your ego is screaming for you to turn back. But you won't. You can't. Because something inside you knows this time you can't run. This time you have to stay, to face it, to claim it, to become it. But the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more presence. And your presence fully embodied, unapologetically expressed, deeply rooted in truth is what will shift timelines, awaken souls, and anchor a future that hasn't been dreamed yet. But it can't happen until you stop rejecting the power within you, until you stop pretending you're not ready, until you stop waiting to be chosen and realize you were chosen the moment you were born. So the only question now is, what are you still afraid to see in yourself? Power in the shadows, why your greatest gifts are hidden in the pain you've been avoiding. There's a sacred truth that most seekers spend lifetimes trying to avoid. The doorway to your power doesn't lie in light, it lies in shadow. Not the romanticized version of shadow we see in books and spiritual memes, but the raw, gritty, unfiltered pain that lives just beneath your surface. The memories you've buried, the emotions you suppress, the identities you clung to because they were safer than the truth. That's where your gift is. And that's why so many dark chosen ones reject their power, because they intuitively know it's not going to be found in bliss, but through a descent into the very places they've spent years trying to escape. You see, we've been conditioned to think that power is something we rise into, that it's found in ascension, in transcendence, in becoming higher than our human experience. But for the dark chosen ones, the opposite is true. Our power is buried. It's layered in trauma, anchored in grief, and encoded in the very experiences that broke us open. We weren't sent here to bypass the pain. We were sent here to walk through it, to descend into the underworld of our own psyche, not to get lost in it, but to retrieve the fragments of our soul that we abandoned long ago. And this is why so many of us hesitate. because we've already felt the intensity of this world. We've already endured the childhoods that didn't make sense, the betrayals that cut deep, the inner chaos that never quite went away. And we fear that if we look too closely, we'll be consumed by it all. That if we really face what's inside us, we'll never come back. But that fear is the final illusion. Because what actually happens when you face it, when you really look at what hurts, is that it begins to dissolve. Not because it disappears, but because your presence transmutes it. Your witnessing is the alchemy, and suddenly what was once pain becomes power. What was once a wound becomes a doorway, but what was once shame becomes medicine. Ask yourself honestly, what emotion or memory do you avoid more than anything? What part of your story makes you feel unworthy, dirty, broken, or beyond redemption? That's the place your power is hidden. Not because the universe is cruel, but because only those brave enough to claim their full humanity are worthy of wielding divine force with integrity. Your pain isn't a curse, it's a code. And once you're willing to enter it with open eyes and an open heart, you unlock something no teacher, no book, no guru could ever give you yourself. This is why the journey of the dark chosen one is so lonely. Because few are willing to go where we must go. It's not popular. It's not polished. It doesn't look pretty on Instagram. It looks like crying on the floor at 3 a.m. for reasons you can't explain. It looks like cutting ties with people who once felt like home because their energy no longer matches your path. It looks like silence, stillness, solitude, and the long, uncomfortable process of facing every false version of you that you've ever worn. But when you come out the other side, what you carry is unshakable. It's not a performance. It's a presence. And that presence shifts reality. The reason your power is hidden in your pain is because that's the only place you've truly been authentic. You didn't perform when you were hurting. You didn't wear a mask when you were breaking. You were real, raw, unfiltered. And in that space, your soul cracked open and something ancient poured through. Something the world cannot teach you because it can only be remembered. And once you remember it, once you feel it, you realize you were never powerless. You were just disconnected from the part of yourself that was bigger than the story you were living. And here's the wildest truth. The more you face your shadow, the more light you gain access to. Not the sugary sweet, love-and light kind of light, but the fierce, grounded, sovereign light that knows darkness intimately and doesn't fear it anymore. That's the kind of light that changes lives. That's the kind of light that makes people stop and stare, not because you're trying to be seen, but because your energy says, I've gone to hell and returned with heaven in my hands. So if you've been wondering why your power feels distant, ask yourself this: what pain have I refused to feel? What truth have I refused to tell? And what would happen if I stopped running and turned to face it not as a victim, but as a vessel? You already know the answer. You've always known. It's time to remember. The mask of smallness, how we hide our greatness behind spiritual excuses. There's a strange paradox that haunts those of us who have been marked with a deeper calling, especially the dark chosen ones. We carry immense spiritual potential, but instead of rising into it, we often shrink ourselves. We bend, we fold. We play small in rooms where our souls want to speak thunder. And we tell ourselves it's not fear, it's humility. We say we're waiting for the right time, or more healing, or a clearer sign from the universe. But deep down, under the carefully crafted spiritual language, what we're really doing is hiding, not from failure, from greatness. Because to accept how powerful we truly are means there's no one left to blame. And that's terrifying. We wear this mask of smallness like a badge of honor. We convince ourselves that if we're modest, if we're quiet, if we stay in the background long enough, the universe will reward us. But the truth is, the universe doesn't respond to how much we hide. It responds to how much we own, and owning your greatness isn't arrogance. It's integrity. It's saying, I refuse to pretend I don't know what I know. It's deciding that your light is not a threat, it's a responsibility. Because when you downplay your gifts, when you deny your calling, when you act like you're not ready, the ones who are meant to be activated by your presence stay asleep. And that's the real consequence of hiding. Let's be honest, many of us have used spiritual language as a shield. We say things like, I'm still working on myself, or I'm just following what feels aligned, or I'm staying in flow. And yes, there's wisdom in those words. But sometimes they're just elegant ways of avoiding the discomfort that comes with expansion. Because real growth is not always flowy, but it's not always peaceful. Sometimes it feels like death, like shedding skin that's still attached, like walking blindfolded into fire. And most of us, when we feel that heat, we call it a sign to stop. But what if it's actually a sign to keep going? What if the resistance is not a wall, but a threshold? The mask of smallness is seductive because it gives us permission to delay. It tells us we're being wise, cautious, thoughtful. But often, that caution is just fear wearing a spiritual costume. And the longer we wear it, the more disconnected we become from our true selves. We start to forget what we're capable of. We numb ourselves to the whisper that once called us forward. We create lives that are safe, but not alive. And then we wonder why we feel empty, even when we're doing all the right things. But here's the deeper truth. Your soul didn't come here to blend in. It didn't come here to comply with comfort, but it came here to disrupt patterns, to dismantle illusions, and to awaken timelines that haven't been born yet. That's not a small mission, and it doesn't require permission. So why are you still waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to be who you already are? You don't have to be perfect to be powerful. Read that again. You don't need to have all your wounds healed, all your chakras aligned, or all your doubts erased. You just need to be honest. Honest about what you feel. Honest about what you know. Honest about the fire that's been burning in your belly since you were a child. That fire is not a fantasy. It's a map. A divine GPS pointing you toward the places and people and expressions that your soul came here to ignite. But it can't guide you if you keep pretending it's not real. Ask yourself, what would you do tomorrow if you stopped pretending to be smaller than you are? What would you say? Where would you go? Who would you finally become if you stopped hiding behind humility and started living from truth? These aren't rhetorical questions, they're keys. And every time you avoid answering them, you delay the reality that's waiting for you on the other side of your courage. The world doesn't need more people who are good at hiding. It needs people who are willing to stand fully in their frequency, even when it makes others uncomfortable. Especially when it makes you uncomfortable. Because that discomfort is not a sign that you're betraying your path, it's a sign that you're touching it. That you're rubbing against the edges of the box you were never meant to live in. You were never meant to be easy to digest. You were meant to be a mirror, one that reflects truth so clearly that it shatters illusion. And yes, that kind of presence will make people project their shadows onto you. It will make them question you, mock you, even fear you. But it will also make them awaken. And that's why you're here. Not to be liked. Not to be safe. To be real. So take off the mask. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop editing your essence. The world is starving for authenticity, and your voice, your energy, your story, your power is the exact nourishment it didn't know it needed. Destiny unveiled, accepting the role you were born to play in a sleeping world. There comes a moment in every dark, chosen one's life when the pretending must end. Not because the world finally grants you permission to be who you are, but because your soul refuses to wait any longer. It's not about ego. It's not about ambition. It's about remembrance. You didn't come here to be passive. You didn't come here just to survive or to blend in. You came here with a very specific, sacred role to serve as a catalyst in a world that has forgotten how to feel, how to see, how to wake up. And that role, it's not a title. It's not something you chase. It's something you embody. It's stamped into your energy. It's woven through your life experiences. It's encoded in the moments that broke you, that rebuilt you, that shaped you into the quiet force you are now. You were never meant to fit into this world's definition of success. You were meant to redefine it, to show what it looks like when truth walks on 2 feet. That's not a metaphor. That's your assignment. But destiny is not something that arrives. It's something you say yes to. And here's the truth most won't tell you. Saying yes to your role means grieving every version of yourself that was built to survive without it. It means letting go of the masks, the relationships, the coping mechanisms, and even the dreams that were created from fear, not from truth. That's why so many of us delay stepping into our power. Because we know deep down that once we say yes, there's no going back to sleep. You're not here to be normal. You're not here to be digestible. You're here to shock the system, not with noise, with frequency, with the kind of energy that walks into a room and shifts the air. That kind of presence doesn't come from what you know. It comes from who you are, and the world may not understand it. That's okay. You weren't sent to be understood. You were sent to be felt, and those who are ready will feel you, without explanation, without logic. They'll remember something ancient just by being near you. So what does it truly mean to accept your role? It means you stop negotiating with your calling. You stop asking the world to validate your path. You stop watering yourself down to be more palatable. It means you trust that the very things about you that make people uncomfortable are the same things that make you powerful. It means you realize that playing small isn't noble, it's selfish. Because when you dim your light to avoid judgment, you're not protecting yourself. You're depriving the world of your medicine. And yes, it will cost you. Real embodiment always does. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you certainty. It might even cost you people. But what you gain in return is sovereignty, clarity, alignment. You'll wake up knowing that your life is not random, but that your presence is a signal, that your voice, your vibration, your very existence is part of a larger pattern, one that's here to disrupt the old and usher in the new. So I ask you, what would happen if you stopped running? If you stopped hiding behind your past, your pain, your spiritual excuses, and just owned it? What would your life look like if you walked with the knowing that you were born to be a living reminder of what's real in a world addicted to illusion? That's the moment your destiny becomes visible, not to others, but to you. That's when your power stops knocking and starts moving. And when it moves through you, reality bends, timelines shift, people awaken. And it all starts with one decision: to stop rejecting what's already yours. You're not waiting for the light. You are the light, hidden in shadow, forged in fire, ready to rise.